The journey began under a pale morning sky, the kind of soft, misty light that made the horizon seem endless and full of possibility. Emma tightened the straps of her traveling satchel, her hands trembling slightly. Not from cold, but from the nervous anticipation that had been building for weeks. She was on her way to meet her arranged husband, a man she had never seen at a distant ranch several days' ride away. The idea of marriage had always seemed like a distant notion, wrapped in polite letters and the carefully worded assurances of her family. But now the reality pressed against her like the weight of her satchel, heavy and immovable, yet filled with hope that perhaps this union could bring her stability and purpose. The road ahead was wild, dusty and uneven, winding through stretches of scrubland and dense forests. Emma had never traveled so far from home alone, and each mile seemed to stretch longer than the last. She relied on a hand-drawn map, its lines curling uncertainly across the paper, and the faint directions of a courier who had delivered her to this life. But the map was old, worn at the edges, and the paths had shifted with rains and seasons. Several times she paused to double-check her bearings, squinting at the inked lines that promised a path forward. Somewhere along the way, the land began to look unfamiliar. The trees thicker, the hills steeper, the quiet of the wilderness pressing closer. By midday, fatigue began to settle into her bones. The sun hung high, relentless, and the heat soaked her clothing, sticking to her skin. Her horse, a patient bay mare named Clover, moved steadily but with a subtle hesitation, as if sensing Emma's unease. Emma spoke softly to her companion, murmuring reassurances, trying to maintain a calm that she herself did not entirely feel. She had envisioned this journey as a straightforward path: ride, arrive, meet her husband. But reality had a way of reshaping even the clearest plans. As afternoon edged into evening, the landscape grew stranger still. Familiar landmarks vanished, replaced by rolling hills dotted with unfamiliar wildflowers and clusters of rocks that seemed to have shifted overnight. Emma felt a prickling anxiety in her chest. Her fingers traced the lines of the map again, trying to reconcile the terrain before her with the direction she had memorized. Every turn seemed wrong, yet each path she chose felt like the only option. When twilight descended, the horizon burned with the fading light of the sun, casting long shadows across the uneven ground. Emma's heart quickened with the realization that she had lost her way. The forest's quiet was no longer comforting. It was ominous, filled with the rustle of leaves and the distant calls of unseen creatures. She urged Clover forward, hoping desperately to find any sign of human habitation: a fence, a chimney, a trail of smoke. The world felt vast and indifferent, and her sense of isolation grew heavier with every passing moment. Then, just as despair began to gnaw at her resolve, a small flicker of light appeared in the distance, faint but unmistakable, a lantern glowing warmly from what seemed to be a ranch house. Emma's pulse quickened. She guided Clover toward it, her heart beating with a mixture of relief and cautious hope. She did not know whose home this was or whether she would be welcomed, yet the promise of shelter, of safety, was irresistible. Exhaustion weighed on her every step, yet a small spark of faith whispered that perhaps this wrong turn might not be a disaster after all. Perhaps somewhere in the shadows of uncertainty, a new beginning awaited. The small ranch appeared modest yet inviting, a simple wooden structure framed by wildflowers and a patchwork of tilled earth. Emma guided Clover up to the front gate, the mare's hooves crunching softly against the worn dirt path. Her heart raced, not entirely from exhaustion, but from the uncertainty of what lay ahead. She had never knocked on a stranger's door without introduction, never asked for aid in a world that could be harsh and unforgiving. Yet the lantern light spilling from the windows promised warmth, safety, and perhaps, if luck held, the compassion of human kindness. Emma approached cautiously, clutching her satchel to her chest as if it were a shield. With a deep breath, she lifted her hand and knocked. The sound echoed faintly across the ranch, mingling with the soft evening breeze that carried the scent of hay, wood smoke, and something more. A faint hint of lavender from the small garden by the porch. She waited, her chest tight, and her eyes scanned the area for movement. After a moment, the door opened, revealing a man whose appearance was as rugged and weathered as the land itself. His hair was dark, flecked with silver, and his eyes, a clear, penetrating blue, regarded her with cautious curiosity. I'm so sorry to bother you," Emma began, her voice wavering. "I'm lost and She faltered, unsure how to explain her predicament without sounding foolish. The man's eyes softened. "You're welcome here," he said simply. "Name's Caleb, this is our home. Come in before it gets too dark." There was no hesitation, no suspicion, just the quiet authority of someone accustomed to life on the frontier yet unafraid to offer aid. Emma's shoulders relaxed slightly, relief washing over her like a cool spring breeze. Inside, the house was simple but well kept. The kitchen smelled of fresh bread and stewed vegetables, evidence of care and domestic rhythm. A small fire crackled in the hearth, casting a golden glow across the wooden floors and worn furniture. And then Emma saw her, a little girl, perhaps 7 or 8, with bright eyes and a curiosity that had clearly been piqued by her visitor. Lily, as Caleb introduced her, approached with cautious excitement. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice soft but insistent, a mixture of curiosity and quiet hope. Emma knelt to meet her gaze, offering a small, reassuring smile. I'm Emma," she said gently. "I'm lost. I didn't mean to come here." Lily's expression changed immediately, a subtle sparkle lighting her eyes. She stepped closer and whispered almost reverently, "God finally sent you to us." Emma froze, stunned by the child's words. They were simple, yet they carried a weight she had not anticipated. The warmth in Lily's voice, the certainty in her belief, touched something deep within Emma. A feeling she had not experienced since leaving home, a sense of belonging she had thought was out of reach. Caleb watched silently, recognizing the instant connection forming between the two. He saw Emma's surprise and the softening of her expression, the way her posture relaxed as if a heavy burden had been lifted. It was clear that this chance encounter, this wrong turn, was not entirely by accident. Something about Emma's presence felt destined, as if the universe itself had guided her steps to this very porch. That night, over a simple supper, Emma shared her story cautiously, and Caleb listened, offering kind reassurances. Lily stayed close, her small hand brushing Emma's as if sealing an unspoken bond. For the first time in days, Emma felt safe, not just physically but emotionally. The fear and uncertainty that had plagued her journey seemed to dissipate, replaced by a quiet, budding hope. Here, in this humble home, she realized she might just find what she had been seeking all along: connection, warmth, and perhaps even love. As the night deepened and Emma prepared to rest, she looked out the window at the darkened fields, the stars twinkling faintly above. Somewhere in the vastness of the frontier, she had taken a wrong turn, but for the first time she felt that wrong turn might be the beginning of everything she truly needed. The morning sunlight spilled gently through the small windows of the ranch, painting the kitchen walls with warm gold and amber hues. Emma stirred from a restless sleep, the events of the previous evening replaying in her mind. She had arrived by mistake, weary and uncertain, yet now she found herself surrounded by a small home that felt unexpectedly comforting. The fire still smoldered faintly in the hearth, sending up soft wisps of smoke and warmth, and the smell of baking bread lingered in the air. But it wasn't just the home or the fire that made her chest feel lighter. It was the quiet presence of Lily, the little girl whose gaze had pierced her heart the night before. As Emma stepped softly into the kitchen, she found Lily sitting at the wooden table, her small hands folded neatly, eyes wide and expectant. There was a calm intensity in the child's look that Emma hadn't encountered before, a certainty and innocence intertwined. Emma knelt slightly to meet her at eye level, offering a tentative smile. "Good morning, Lily," she said softly. "Did you sleep well?" The girl nodded solemnly, her expression almost too serious for her age. Then almost shyly she leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "God finally sent you to us." The words hung in the air, fragile yet profound. Emma felt a jolt of emotion she could scarcely explain. It wasn't simply gratitude. It was a quiet recognition, a deep, unspoken connection that made her feel as if she had been found rather than lost. Emma's heart tightened as she reached out to gently touch Lily's hand. The warmth of the child's skin against hers, the earnestness in her gaze, stirred something protective and tender within her. This small, seemingly innocent whisper carried a gravity Emma wasn't expecting. In that moment, the journey she had feared was a mistake. The wrong turn, the exhaustion, the uncertainty, felt as though it had been guided with purpose. Caleb entered the kitchen then, bringing a kettle of boiling water and a basket of freshly baked rolls. His eyes met Emma's and he gave a small, knowing smile. He had seen the way Lily had drawn her in, the immediate bond forming between them. Caleb had lived through loss, guarding his heart fiercely, yet he sensed that Emma's presence might be a turning point for all three of them. He said nothing, but his quiet watchfulness lent a steady, grounding reassurance to the moment. As breakfast progressed, Emma found herself watching the small exchanges between father and daughter, noticing the gentle teasing, the tiny routines, and the love woven into each gesture. Lily's whisper lingered in her mind like a melody she couldn't forget. It was more than a simple statement of hope. It was a recognition of belonging, of destiny, and of the invisible thread that seemed to tie her life to this small ranch. Emma realized that sometimes the heart recognizes truth before the mind does, and in Lily's whisper, her heart had already chosen a path she hadn't considered before. Later, as Emma stepped outside to help with the morning chores, she caught herself glancing at Lily frequently. The child's laughter as she chased a chicken across the yard, the way she paused to offer Emma a flower from the garden, the unguarded honesty in her words, all of it left an imprint on Emma's heart. The bond that had begun with a single whisper was deepening with every small interaction. By the end of the day, Emma understood something profound. Her journey was no longer about reaching a distant ranch or fulfilling an obligation. It was about the home, the people, and the unexpected connections she had discovered. Lily's whisper had shifted the course of her life, turning what she had feared was a mistake into the first step of a new beginning. And as Emma lay awake that night, she realized with quiet certainty that sometimes the most important turns in life are the ones we never planned to take. The first full day at Caleb's ranch began with the soft glow of dawn brushing the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Emma awoke to the sounds of roosters crowing and the gentle lowing of cattle in the distance. She rose with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, aware that her stay was no longer just temporary. She had arrived by accident, yet now she felt a quiet anticipation, almost as if the ranch had been waiting for her arrival all along. Caleb was already up, his sturdy frame moving efficiently around the kitchen as he prepared breakfast. Lily bounced about in small, eager steps, helping wherever she could without being asked. Emma watched them for a moment, taking in the rhythm of the household. The effortless coordination between father and daughter, the way even small chores were infused with care and attentiveness. The sight stirred something in her heart, a longing for belonging and purpose she hadn't fully recognized until now. After a hearty breakfast of eggs, bread, and stewed fruit, Caleb suggested Emma join him in the day's chores. Hesitant at first, she agreed, realizing this was the best way to truly understand life on the ranch. Her first task was to help mend a broken fence. Caleb guided her patiently, showing her how to secure the posts, stretch the wire taut, and ensure the cattle stayed contained. Emma's hands, delicate from years of city life and domestic work, were clumsy at first, fumbling with nails and hammers, but Caleb's steady presence and gentle encouragement allowed her to gain confidence. Lily skipped around holding tools too big for her small hands, occasionally offering help in ways that were both adorable and surprisingly effective. By midday, Emma had begun to feel a sense of accomplishment she hadn't experienced in years. The physical work was demanding, but it grounded her in a way nothing else had. She discovered a satisfaction in seeing the fence stand firm, knowing she had contributed to the ranch's safety. Caleb noticed the determination in her eyes and offered quiet praise, something that felt more meaningful than words she had heard her whole life. For the first time, she felt like she was truly needed, not as a visitor or an obligation, but as an integral part of a small, caring family. As the sun climbed higher, they moved on to feeding the animals. Emma learned to carry buckets of water, fill troughs, and carefully measure feed. Lily chattered constantly, asking Emma questions about her life and sharing stories of her own adventures on the ranch. The little girl's curiosity was endless, and Emma found herself laughing more than she had in months. Each laugh, each whispered comment from Lily, created a bond stronger than anything she had expected to find. During a quiet moment in the afternoon, Emma stepped back to admire the scene. Caleb working with the horses, Lily running barefoot through the grass, and herself, sweaty and dirt-streaked but smiling genuinely for the first time in weeks. The beauty of the ranch was not only in the rolling fields or the golden light, it was in the life being lived within it, the love and connection that made every small action meaningful. She realized that her journey had not ended in failure, It had brought her to a place where she could contribute, belong, and grow in ways she had never imagined. As the day drew to a close, they returned to the house, tired but content. Emma bathed, washed her hands in the basin outside, and felt a sense of peace settle over her. Dinner was a lively affair with stories, laughter, and gentle teasing between Caleb and Lily. For the first time, Emma felt the quiet certainty that she was not simply a guest or a visitor. She was becoming part of a family. That night, as she lay in the small guest room Caleb had prepared for her, Emma reflected on the day. The work had been hard, the tasks unfamiliar, yet her heart was full. The wrong turn that had brought her here felt less like an accident and more like fate. She realized with deep gratitude that belonging was not something one sought. It was something that found you, sometimes in the quietest, most unexpected ways. Days passed on the ranch, each one weaving Emma more deeply into the fabric of Caleb and Lily's lives. The initial awkwardness of a stranger in their home had long since faded, replaced by a natural rhythm of companionship, laughter, and quiet understanding. Emma had learned to move through the ranch with confidence, her hands strong from chores, her presence calming and reassuring. But it was not only the work that drew her closer to them. It was the small, unspoken moments, the everyday gestures that revealed the hearts of the people she had come to love. One morning, as sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, Emma watched Caleb and Lily preparing breakfast together. Lily perched on a stool, humming softly while Caleb measured flour for the bread. Emma joined in, helping knead the dough and humming along with the child's tune. Caleb's eyes met hers for a brief moment, and in that glance, she saw a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and something gentler, something that made her heart flutter unexpectedly. There was no rush to name it, no urgency to define it. It simply existed, growing quietly like the seeds planted in the ranch's fields. Over the following days, Emma noticed herself thinking about Caleb often. She admired his quiet strength, the way he handled difficulties with calm determination, and his gentle manner with Lily. There was a warmth in his laughter, a sincerity in his words that made her feel seen in a way she had never experienced before. He, in turn, began to rely on her presence, not just for help around the ranch, but for the comfort she brought to their small family. Her laughter echoed through the fields, her counsel offered a new perspective on old problems, and her gentle kindness touched both father and daughter in ways neither had anticipated. Lily became the bridge between them, her affection for Emma evident in every playful gesture, every whispered mama that slipped from her lips in moments of joy. She would run to Emma with small treasures from the garden, proudly showing off flowers or tiny rocks she deemed beautiful. "Look, Mama, this is for you," she'd say, her eyes sparkling with innocence and trust. Emma's heart swelled at these moments, a fierce protective instinct rising within her. She realized she had begun to love Lily in a way that was almost instinctual, as if the child had always been a part of her life, waiting to be found. One afternoon, as a storm rolled in over the distant hills, Caleb and Emma worked together to secure the animals. The wind whipped at their coats, rain began to fall in heavy sheets, yet there was an unspoken camaraderie between them. They laughed through the chaos, shared glances filled with quiet understanding, and for the first time, Emma felt truly at home in a place that had once seemed foreign. She realized that this growing bond was no longer simply about kindness or gratitude. It was the beginning of something deeper, a connection that could withstand the unpredictability of life and the passage of time. That evening, after the storm passed, they sat by the fire, damp but content. Lily nestled between them. Emma's fingers brushed Caleb's as they handed him a blanket for the little girl, and a warmth spread through her chest. The three of them sat in companionable silence, the firelight flickering against their faces. In that moment, Emma understood that she had found a home not through intention, but through circumstance, through small, everyday interactions that had slowly, inexorably tied their lives together. As Emma lay in her room that night, she reflected on the transformation within her. She had come to the ranch by mistake, weary and uncertain, yet she had discovered love, belonging, and a sense of purpose she had never known. The bond she shared with Caleb and Lily was growing stronger every day, built on trust, affection, and the quiet certainty that some people are meant to find each other, even when the world seems to have other plans. For the first time in her life, Emma felt that she truly belonged, and that the path that had seemed wrong at first had led her exactly where she needed to be. Life on the ranch had settled into a comfortable rhythm, but the serenity of Emma's newfound home was about to be disrupted. One late morning, as she tended the garden with Lily at her side, a distant rider appeared on the horizon, dust rising from the hooves of the horse. At first, Emma thought it was just a neighbor, but as the figure drew closer, her heart sank. The rider carried a message from the town several miles away, a letter stamped with her family's seal and marked urgent. She recognized it immediately. It was from the man she was supposed to marry. Emma's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. The words inside were clear and insistent. She was to return immediately as her presence was required at the ranch of her intended husband. The letter spoke of family honor, obligations, and duty, concepts that had guided her life up to this point. But now, reading the words in the gentle sunlight of Caleb's garden, they felt foreign and hollow. Her thoughts immediately went to Caleb and Lily, to the laughter, the warmth, and the unexpected love she had begun to feel here. A painful conflict began to stir in her heart. She did not speak immediately, but Lily, sensing Emma's sudden tension, tugged at her sleeve. "Are you all right, Mama?" the little girl asked innocently, her voice laced with worry. Emma crouched down to Lily's level, taking her small hands in her own. I received a message," she said softly. "It asks me to go somewhere else, far away, but I don't know if I should." Before Emma could respond further, Caleb joined them, his expression calm yet concerned. He read the letter over her shoulder, noting the formality of the words and the weight of the obligation it represented. "Emma," he said gently, "I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what I see. I see a woman who belongs here with us, not because of duty or obligation, but because she has become a part of this family." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes, the storm inside her mirroring the distant thunder rolling over the hills. She realized that the choice before her was more than a matter of convenience. It was a test of her heart. Could she walk away from the life she had begun to love, from the small hands that held hers so tightly, from the man who had quietly become her anchor? Or would she honor a duty that no longer resonated with the person she was becoming? The situation was complicated further by a minor crisis on the ranch, a sick calf struggling to stand in the barn. Emma and Caleb rushed to care for it, working together to stabilize the animal. Lily clung to Emma's side, her small voice offering encouragement. The teamwork, the shared concern, and the way Emma instinctively took charge reinforced what she had begun to feel, that her place was here, among them. The crisis forced her to confront her priorities, revealing in stark terms where her loyalties and affections truly lay. That evening, after the calf had recovered enough to rest, Emma sat by the fire with Caleb and Lily. The letter lay unopened beside her, a silent reminder of the choice she faced. She knew she could no longer pretend she was indifferent to either path. The storm outside mirrored the one inside her heart, dark, tense, and charged with possibility. For the first time, she understood that life does not simply hand us choices neatly packaged. Sometimes, it challenges us with conflicting demands, forcing us to examine who we are and what we truly value. As night fell, Emma resolved that she needed to follow her heart, no matter the risk. The wrong turn that had brought her here had blossomed into a home, a family, and a love she could not abandon. Whatever the consequences of ignoring her old obligations, she knew one thing with absolute clarity. She could not walk away from the people who had already become the center of her life. The morning sun crept softly over the horizon, painting the ranch in hues of gold and rose. Emma sat on the edge of the porch, the letter from her original groom still unopened on the table beside her. The night storm had passed, leaving the world outside fresh, glistening, and alive, but inside Emma, her heart was restless. Every moment spent on the ranch, every shared laugh with Lily, every quiet glance with Caleb had built an undeniable truth. She belonged here. Yet the weight of her obligations tugged at her conscience, reminding her of the life she was expected to return to. Emma rose, taking a deep breath of the crisp morning air. She had reached a decision. The path of duty, the one she had been told was right, was no longer the path of her heart. Her heart had chosen a different direction, guided by love, belonging, and the bonds that had quietly grown in this home she had stumbled upon by accident. Today she would speak the truth, not only to Caleb and Lily but to herself. Inside the kitchen, she found Caleb repairing a fence post, his strong hands steady and sure. Lily was nearby, drawing with sticks in the dirt, humming a little tune she had invented. Emma approached, her steps slow, her pulse quickening. "Caleb," she began softly, her voice carrying a mixture of fear and hope. "I need to tell you something. I've received a letter, but I know now that I can't leave. I don't want to leave. My place is here with you and Lily." Caleb looked up, his eyes locking with hers. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence was thick with anticipation, charged with the unspoken emotions that had been building for weeks. Then he set down his tools, wiping his hands on his worn trousers, and stepped closer. "Emma," he said, his voice low but steady. "I hoped you'd say that. I felt it too, since the day you arrived. I didn't want to push, but I can't deny it anymore. I care for you. More than I expected, more than I knew was possible." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of relief, joy, and love that made her hands tremble. She took a cautious step toward him, then another, until she was close enough to reach for his hand. Their fingers intertwined naturally, the simple touch speaking volumes of the unspoken connection between them. In that quiet moment, Emma realized that the wrong turn that had brought her here had led her to exactly where she needed to be. Lily's small voice interrupted the tension, filled with excitement and innocence. "Does this mean you'll stay, Mama?" she asked, her eyes wide and shimmering with hope. Emma knelt and embraced her, feeling the child's warmth press against her heart. "Yes, Lily," she whispered, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm home now with you and Daddy." The rest of the day passed in a haze of quiet celebration and gentle relief. Emma, Caleb, and Lily moved through the ranch together, the atmosphere lighter, brighter, filled with laughter and contentment. There was no grand ceremony, no dramatic proclamation, just the profound, steady certainty of a family united by love and choice. Each small gesture, from Caleb showing Emma the repaired fence to Lily proudly displaying her latest drawing, reinforced the bond they shared. As the sun dipped below the hills, casting long shadows over the ranch, Emma stood beside Caleb, looking out at the fields that stretched endlessly before them. The decision had been difficult, the choice between obligation and the heart never simple, but now clarity had emerged. She realized that life sometimes delivers the most important lessons in the form of wrong turns, accidents, and chance encounters. It is in those moments that destiny quietly reshapes itself, guiding the heart to where it truly belongs. That night, as the stars blinked into existence above the quiet ranch, Emma felt a deep, unshakable peace. She was home in every sense of the word. The path ahead was uncertain, yes, but it was a path she would walk willingly, hand in hand with Caleb and Lily, bound by love, trust, and the whisper that had started it all. The first light of dawn stretched across the ranch, spilling golden hues over the fields, the barn, and the house that had become Emma's home. The quiet of the morning was broken only by the soft clucking of chickens and the distant lowing of cattle. Emma stepped outside, her hands clasped around a steaming mug of tea, and inhaled the crisp, earthy scent of the land. Everything felt right here, the gentle sway of the grass, the warm sun on her face, and the knowledge that she belonged to this place, to Caleb, and to Lily. The ranch had changed in small but profound ways since Emma had arrived. Fences were mended, fields tended, and the household hummed with a comfortable rhythm. But more importantly, the air carried a sense of love and unity that had been absent before. Caleb and Emma worked seamlessly together, their glances and gestures filled with understanding born of shared experiences and growing affection. Lily's laughter rang out across the yard as she played freely, her small hand often seeking Emma's, her trust and joy a constant reminder of the family they were building. Emma's morning began with the usual chores, though now they felt less like obligations and more like opportunities to connect. She fed the animals alongside Caleb, brushing down the horses with care and chatting about their plans for the day. Lily ran ahead, giggling as she carried a small basket of eggs she had gathered, proud of her contribution. Emma found herself laughing, her heart swelling with contentment at the simple, honest joys of life on the ranch. Each task, no matter how mundane, was infused with meaning because they were doing it together. After breakfast, Caleb suggested they take a short ride across the property. Emma mounted her horse Clover, feeling the familiar thrill of the ride, and glanced at Caleb and Lily riding beside her. They moved together in perfect harmony, the land stretching endlessly before them, the wind tugging playfully at their hair. Emma felt a deep gratitude for the unexpected journey that had brought her here. What had begun as a wrong turn, a mistake in the course of her life, had transformed into the most beautiful beginning she could imagine. Later that afternoon, as they returned to the ranch, Emma helped Lily gather wildflowers from the field. The little girl handed her a small bouquet, beaming. "For you, Mama," she said, her eyes sparkling with delight. Emma knelt to embrace her, feeling the warmth and sincerity of the child's love. Caleb watched them, a quiet smile on his face, and Emma felt her heart stir at the sight. It was a family, whole and unshakable, born of chance and choice alike. As evening approached, the three of them sat on the porch, the sky painted with streaks of orange and lavender. Caleb strummed a gentle tune on his old guitar while Lily hummed along, and Emma leaned against him, her hand resting over his. The world felt suspended in that moment, peaceful and full of promise. For the first time, Emma felt that everything she had experienced, the confusion, the misdirection, and even the uncertainty of her journey, had led her to this exact point, to a home and family she could never have imagined. That night, as stars glittered above the quiet ranch, Emma reflected on the journey that had brought her here. What had seemed like a wrong turn had been in truth a path guided by fate. She had found love in Caleb's quiet strength, joy in Lily's innocence, and a sense of belonging that no letter, obligation, or plan could have given her. The ranch, once a simple house in the wilderness, had become a sanctuary, a place where hearts intertwined and life blossomed. Emma lay in her room, listening to the soft breathing of the little girl in the next room and the distant murmur of Caleb outside. A smile spread across her face. Life was not about perfection or following a predetermined path. It was about the moments, the connections, and the love that turned strangers into family. And in that realization, she finally understood that sometimes the wrong turn truly is the beginning of everything one has ever needed.